Palestinian woman named Leqaa Kordia has just been released after ICE threw her in prison for over a year without a trial. Now, Cenk, before I give you the details on this, I think it's important to note that she was arrested for being part of the pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University in 2024, meaning that Biden's administration was okay with detaining her.
Of course they were.
Yeah.
Because no matter who you elect, you always get President Netanyahu. So it doesn't matter, Biden, Trump. And now they're taking, Israel is taking political prisoners inside the US.
Literally.
And they're saying, you should burn your constitution. You don't have any First Amendment rights to criticize us. We're superior to you. Know your role, otherwise we'll stuff you in a prison like we did to this poor lady. So Anna, tell them the details.
So as I mentioned earlier, Kordia was arrested back in 2024 for being part of these demonstrations at Columbia University. It hurt the feelings of some of the other students. However, she was quickly released after she was detained because she was found to have done nothing wrong. Now look, to be clear, there were some students who were engaged in chaos or might have genuinely made Jewish students uncomfortable with anti-Semitic attacks, but the majority of the protesters, the bulk of the protest was meant to pressure Columbia University to divest from Israeli connected companies, which I think is a totally legitimate thing to call for, especially if you're a student paying tuition. Now so she gets released, and then soon after that, Trump comes into office, he gets inaugurated, and he decides, I'm gonna reopen her case, okay? And so that happens, and she ends up getting arrested, along with Mahmoud Khalil. Now, Kordia was detained on March 13th of last year, and they, charged her with some interesting charges: money laundering, overstaying her student visa, which was expired in 2022, so they might have actually had a case there. But the third one was being a terrorist sympathizer.
Come on.
Okay, so obviously the money laundering and being a terrorist sympathizer, total BS charges. Overstaying your visa, okay, but do you deserve to be in prison for that? Well, she was in prison for over a year. Okay, the Trump administration claimed that they were looking into payments that she sent overseas. You want to know what the payments were? Tricia McLaughlin, a disgrace and the spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, said in a statement that Kordia had been found to be providing financial support to individuals living in nations hostile to the United States. Oh, that's fascinating. So it turns out that she did send money abroad. She's Palestinian, and she sent money to her family members in Gaza. And apparently that's offensive to the United States government. I should also note that 200 of her family members were slaughtered by the Israelis in Gaza. That's not offensive. That doesn't at all offend the sensibilities of Trump administration officials. But the audacity of this woman to send $1,000 to her family members in Gaza, well, she should go to prison for that, right?
So the Israelis are not bad guys for slaughtering her family. She's a bad person for sending a tiny amount of money so that they could eat and live as the Israelis were trying to starve them to death. Okay, so they're setting some dangerous precedents that they should be very careful with here. Because they're saying you're gonna go to prison in America if you're a terrorist sympathizer. But we just showed you earlier in the show that the biggest terrorists in the world are the Israelis, and that's an empirical fact. Civilian kill ratio of 83%, worse than any terrorist group, worse than Hamas and Hezbollah. So if you're a terrorist sympathizer who is providing money to Israel, should you go to prison? Because it's an empirical fact that the Israelis are worse terrorists. The IDF is the biggest terrorist organization in the world. So, and the charges that they might have done against Tucker Carlson, we don't know yet, but he talked about it a couple of days ago, was coordinating with a foreign government. You sure you want that precedent if you're an Israeli supporter here? Because there are tons and tons and tons of media and politicians in this country who are coordinating with a foreign government called Israel. So they're putting out all these precedents. Oh yeah, go get the Muslims. Make sure that they're not allowed to talk. In fact, forget Muslims. Make sure no one's allowed to criticize Israel, and we'll just call them terrorist sympathizers.
We gotta get them out of our country, man. Do you guys not see how they're they're carrying out a full-blown assault on our liberties here, okay? All right, let's get back to
They
Kordia.
hate America.
They do.
I mean, it's
we're just a tool for them. We're their ATM machine. Our soldiers are disposable for them. It makes me sick. But anyway, getting back to Kordia. So she gets detained again in a Texas facility and is treated in a way that can only be described as torturous. Okay, so in one particularly horrifying instance, she had a seizure and was shackled to a bed for 3 days after. 3 days shackled to a bed.
Shackled.
For the crime of having a seizure. The entire time I was
having an opinion that Israel does not approve of in America.
Right. The entire time I was chained, I felt like an animal. ICE detention facilities are built to break people and destroy their health and hope. I want everyone to know what happened to me because the same things are happening to other women who are locked up there or here. So get a load of this. A judge ruled on 2 different occasions that she should be released, ordered that she be released. But the federal government used all sorts of legal loopholes to keep her in prison. Last month, the New York City mayor, Zoran Mamdani, who is a real leader, actually met with Donald Trump and simply asked for Kordia's release. And luckily, Trump did it. He did release her. Okay, so actually a judge weighed in after that one more time and demanded that she get released. And now she can finally return home. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson told BBC, the facts of this case have not changed. Kordia is in the country illegally after violating the terms of her visa. That might be the only thing they're saying that's truthful. The Trump administration is committed to restoring the rule of law and common sense to our immigration system and will continue to fight for the arrest, detention, and removal of aliens who have no right to be in this country. Any comment on the fake charges of her engaged in money laundering? Anything to say about the trumped up charge of her supporting terrorist organizations? Nothing? You think she deserved to be tortured in a prison for over a year because she overstayed her visa?
No, but guys, people overstay their visa all the time. But as long as they don't speak out against Israel, they don't get stuffed into a prison without any charges for a year. What determines whether you're punished or not is not your visa status, it's your opinion about Israel. And so you think they're gonna just leave it at people with visas? Do you know that the Supreme Court has ruled repeatedly for hundreds of years that the First Amendment applies to everyone in America, including non-citizens? So if they're allowed to destroy the First Amendment for non-citizens, guess what? That sets a precedent for destroying the First Amendment for citizens as well.
Well, they're working on it.
And that's right, and Israel demands that we destroy our own constitution.
They literally say it out loud, like various, government officials within Israel. There's all these conferences that get carried out where you'll hear people like Jonathan Greenblatt talk about, dismantling First Amendment rights. I came across, Jake, I don't know if you've seen this video. It's from January of 2025. Jonathan Greenblatt is at one of these Israeli conferences, and he literally suggests that maybe the best way to combat anti-Semitism is to consider doing the beeper method.
Oh, okay.
I tweeted it out. You guys could look at it for yourselves.
We've got to start doing things differently. And the same goes here in Israel. This means that the problem won't be solved by yet another new Knesset task force. It won't be solved by the government just throwing money at the problem. It won't be solved by the IDF spokesperson's unit issuing updated talking points or suddenly using TikTok. Like us in America, you need to adopt new strategies, to experiment with creative tactics, to study the results and scale what works. Maybe it's a whole new IDF unit, call it 8300, to lead this fight. But we need the kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle. We need the kind of courage that executed Operation Deep Layer inside Syria and destroyed Iranian missile manufacturing capabilities to undertake this mission.
He's like, the conventional ways of dealing with this isn't working.
So he's pretending to be a civil rights leader.
Yes.
arguing in favor of genocide and terrorism.
Yep.
I don't know if they're going to give the beepers to Americans who disagree with Israel.
That's what he's talking about.
Okay, so, and by the way, he's attacking Ro Khanna now and Senator Van Hollen because they're the two Democrats who've had the courage to speak out against Israel.
This guy is out of control.
No, he's a full-blown fascist. And by the way, he would put me in prison for that if he had his way, because a lot of states have passed laws, and also on college campuses, there's a new definition of anti-Semitism, and they, I think it's called IHRA, and there's like 18 different things you're not allowed to say about Israel, including saying that they're doing the equivalent of what the Nazis did. So if fascism or genocide or anything along those lines.
They are.
So they say if any American accurately, including the genocide scholars, say that it's a genocide, which almost all the genocide scholars say it is a genocide.
Like B'Tselem, you mean?
Yeah. So they say that's it. You're saying that we're like the Germans, so you should be arrested and your freedom should be taken away from you. Or if you're on a college campus, you should be arrested. You should be kicked out of the school that you're in. And we should use a thuggish police state against any critic of Israel here in America. And anything you say, oh, that triggers this, that triggers that triggers this definition. And so we'll rob America of its freedoms and get them to serve Israel. So they're literally taking political prisoners now. This is outrageous. This is a direct assault on the principles and idea of America. And obviously they don't mind because they're not America. They're a different country. And they think, well, we don't like America's freedom. We want to shut them up. We don't like that you have a democracy where your representatives are supposed to represent you. We want them to represent us. So we paid $100 million in that last election cycle to buy in almost your entire Congress. And then we had the Adelsons give $300 million to Trump, #1 lifetime donor to Joe Biden, Hakeem Jeffries, and Mike Johnson. We bought all your politicians. Oh no, you can't say that, stuff them in a prison. Stuff all Americans into prisons if they don't agree with Israel and they don't bow their head to a foreign nation. I can't wait for these guys to run away from this country the minute people start finding out.
They're never gonna run away, they need to be pushed out. And more Americans are waking up to the very insidious impact our alliance with Israel has.
Yes, and let me be super clear, guys, because I don't want anybody ever getting the wrong idea. Never assume that about a Jewish American, okay? Some of the best fighters for peace, for decency, to stop this genocide, stop these wars are Jewish Americans.
Jeffrey Sachs.
Okay, we can go on forever. Yeah. Robert Greenwald, Glenn Greenwald, and Dave Smith, and look, guys, there's like literally thousands of them. I'm not gonna spend hours doing this. So do not ever do anything physical or violent. That would be what Israelis do. Do not take away anybody's freedoms. That's what Israelis would do. Do not attack people who are innocent. That's what Israelis would do, okay? So we never do any of that. But if you're from a different government, whether it's Hungary, Israel, Brazil, I don't really care. We've got to root you out of our government because you guys are spies and traitors, whoever you are. And remember, most of Israel First is not even Jewish. It's sellouts like Lindsey Graham
Christian Zionists,
Ted Cruz, and all these guys who've taken money from the Israeli lobby and now serve them loyally. Well, if you're gonna go coordinate with the Israelis about how to push us into the war, which is what Lindsey Graham did before the war, well, then you shouldn't be in the American government. There's a good chance that you're a terrorist sympathizer who's coordinated with a foreign government, and those are actually illegal things. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.